he said something that kind of made me laugh, and I felt my mouth start to water.
Oh, no.
And he asked me a question, and I put my finger up, and my mouth started to fill with a certain kind of thick fluid, and I projectile vomited the banana that I had for breakfast this morning and more.
So wait, is this all because of who you were talking to? Can we just get a confirmation there?
I would like to make that connection.
Yeah.
This is Podcrushed,
The podcast that takes the sting out of rejection, one crushing middle school story at a time.
and where guests share their teenage memories, both meaningful and mortifying.
And we're your hosts. I'm Nava, a former middle school director.
I'm Sophie, a former 5th grade teacher.
And I'm Penn, a middle school dropout. We're just three baha'is who were living in Brooklyn.
Wanting to make stuff together.
With a particular fondness for awkward nostalgia.
Well, I struggle with nostalgia. I'm here for the therapy. Okay, so let's get to our guest. Today, we have Jenna Ortega, an actress who I first met when she played the iconic Ellie Alves on my show, You, in season 2, but she was also iconic as young Jane in Jane the Virgin, in the Scream reboot, and she's going to be in Tim Burton's Wednesday, playing, of all people, Tuesday. It's a strange, yeah.
Sophie, don't laugh at that.
She's playing Wednesday.
But first, we are going to listen to a story. This is such a good story. I feel like it brings me right back to middle school. I might as well be this main character. Without further ado, let's get into Goodbyebrow.
So there I was, a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 6th grader in all my awkward glory. The year was 2003, and my AIM profile was stacked with Evanescence lyrics.
Wake me up. Wake me up inside. Wake up. Wake me up inside. Call my name and save me from the night.
In 5th grade, I was surrounded by girly girls with cute braids and perfect outfits, and then there was me, an oddball, emo 11-year-old tomboy who already had hair everywhere. Of course, I was a late bloomer in all the other ways, but not my hair. No, not only was my hair abundant, it was also very dark, which made it really pop against my pale skin. And thanks to my Hispanic roots, I had a pretty aggressive unibrow blooming in full force right when 5th grade started. But back to 6th grade, you remember bright-eyed, bushy-tailed? Yeah, so we sat alphabetically in the hallways after lunch, and I just so happened to be slotted right between my crush, Jack, and the school bully, Noah. Jack took his seat behind me, but not before shooting me a quick smile. OMG. I snapped my head forward so Jack wouldn't notice my beet red cheeks. I had to will myself not to throw up. He was so fucking cute. At that moment, Noah turned around, interrupting my silent ruminations on the beauty that was Jack, poked his grubby Noah finger right between my eyes, proclaiming, "Nice hairy caterpillar, freak." Noah. In my mind, I was slaying Noah with witty comebacks. In reality, I sat there sobbing. In front of everyone. In front of Jack. That night, I tried to convince my mom to let me use tweezers to tame this beast. I cried, I pleaded, I groveled. She was immovable. You and your sister have beautiful eyebrows. You will appreciate them one day. Trust me. But this was not that time. I rolled my eyes and waited for the perfect chance to steal her tweezers from her purse later that night. The next morning, I went to school and hurried straight to the bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror and I went on a tweezing frenzy. So I'd never watched anyone tweeze their eyebrows before. I had no idea what I was doing. YouTube tutorials were not on my radar yet, okay? So I surveyed my work. No hairy beast between my brows. No baby caterpillar above the bridge. Take that, Noah. I proudly walked out, and I went about my day. Time for lunch, or as I like to call it, Jack and me time. I took my seat, excited. Jack and Noah approached. They spotted me at the same time. Their jaws dropped. "Oh my God," they exclaimed in unison. "What did you do?" I had tweezed the hair all the way to the middle of both eyes. I could fit my entire hand in between my brows and still see the blotchy red bare skin where hair once thrived. I realized my mistake instantly. I bolted from the spot and ran back to the scene of the massacre to cry. From the bathroom, I could actually still hear Noah and Jack laughing at me. I was mortified. I basically cried my way through the rest of the school year and vowed never to touch tweezers again. Joke's on them, though, because today, Jack and Noah are bald with beer guts starting fake news wars on Facebook. Me? I got my awkward phase out of the way, and I look fly as hell now. XOXO. Glow up, girl.
Thank you so much for having me, Penn. I think that this is my first actual podcast conversation. So,
Is it really?
yeah.
What an
Wow.
honor.
Truly an honor, Jenna.
So wait, are you in a hotel room in Romania?
I'm in an apartment in Romania.
You're in an
Yeah.
apartment? Oh!
For 6 months now.
6 months?
Is any of your family with you right now, or are you by yourself in Romania?
No, I'm by myself.
What's that been like? 6 months in Romania in a pandemic by yourself?
Have you been alone the whole time?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, my mom visited for a week, but other than that, I haven't been with anybody.
Wow. I mean, I know what that's like, but not during a pandemic.
Yep.
So you're shooting a whole season of a show? Wednesday of the Addams Family.
Yeah, so Gomez and Morticia.
Is Tim Burton, is he producing or is he directing or is he like, what's his involvement?
He's executive producing and directing.
Wow.
Yeah, he is one of the sweetest, if not the sweetest director I've ever worked with. So kind and normal. I've never met with someone who's so visually concentrated, which I guess makes sense for his aesthetic. But I remember even the first day of shooting when we were doing my braids for the first time, and he spent 10 minutes with the hairbrush's comb, literally dissecting strands on my forehead.
Wow.
No, that one needs to curve more. That strand is too thick, or this is too whatever. The visual stuff that he cares about, you know, he'll crawl on the floor and fall out of lockers and crawl under beds to explain to an actor what exactly he wants or what he's looking for visually. But if there's like a continuity error where, oh man, the door latch was on the left door, but now it's on the right door, he says, I'll tell him I'm dyslexic, you know, like, don't worry. And he's super collaborative. He'll ask me, how do you feel about the sides today? Is there anything that's bumping you? Do you want to get rid of something? Do you want to say this instead? Do you want to do this instead? And then we'll talk about it. And then he'll go to the writers and then we'll go to the script supervisor and then we'll go on about our day, which is really cool because not all directors do that. You was an exceptionally cool set because Sarah Gamble and all them are the coolest. But I've also worked on shows where I've felt like a puppet and you have to say the line exactly this way or else. But when Tim's around, it never feels that way at all, which is a relief.
Well, we're very excited to see it.
We talked a little bit about this on set when we were on my show, You. Always a difficult pronoun reference. we both were child actors. And I mean, I started auditioning when I was, I think about 9, maybe for the first time when I was doing theater.
I was 9, 10.
So what was it like for you as a child actor getting into storytelling? What got you into it and how did you feel once you started auditioning for the first time?
I first brought up the conversation of acting with my parents when I was around 6 years old.
Wow.
I had just watched Man on Fire. And then my mom came home from work and I told her, I want to be the Puerto Rican Dakota Fanning.
Aww.
That's going to be what I do for the rest of my life. And yeah, I don't think I actually convinced my mom till I was around 9 or 10. And I think because I was so stubborn and so determined and I worked so hard to convince my parents that, hey, I'm going to do this. And if you let me do this, I'm going to do something big. I told them, I remember I was watching Disney Channel and my parents came home and I went over to the room and I was like, you know what? If you let me act, I could be on that TV on that Disney Channel show right now. Just letting you know. And then that's what I did like 4 years later. So I think it was triumphs like that or little things that kind of kept me going. But something that I appreciated about my child actor experience is because I wasn't immersed in LA, I wasn't fully immersed in the culture. I still went to public school. I've had the same friends since I was 4 years old. You know, I would go to work, drive home, go to school the next day. It became, I don't know, kind of just, it was 2 separate lives for me. And I think as I've gotten older, especially now, I think now is kind of a confusing time for me because it's blending into one life and I don't have that school experience anymore to kind of filter or dilute all that happens in this industry. So it's been kind of a learning curve.
I'm curious, what were your parents' reactions when you told them that you wanted to be the Puerto Rican Dakota Fanning? Were they into it?
No, my mom hated it. The way she said it is, you know, Jenna, I grew up watching, you know, people lose their minds in that industry, you know, because the tabloids and whatever they say about child stars gone crazy. And she said that before she had kids, she remembers hearing stories like that and thinking, man, I would never, ever put my child in that situation or allow them, so she kind of takes it as the universe slapping her wrist and basically telling her, don't try to predict or assume things. But she was not entertained by the idea at all. And it became very annoying for her, actually. She would get me monologue books from Barnes & Noble and just close the door to my room and just say, oh, here, play with this or do this, whatever.
And would you, so were you like, would you, part of like your self-imposed training or anything, would you read monologues?
Yeah, I would either memorize monologues and read them in the mirror, or I would just come up with random scenarios. I could be eating breakfast and suddenly I was a 50-year-old man from Idaho. I don't know. I just came up with these random scenarios, but that's how I actually started acting, because my mom filmed one of the monologues once and she put it on Facebook and said, oh, look, she's such a drama queen or something to that effect. And a casting director saw it, coincidentally enough.
What?
And,
wow.
And then she set me up with a meeting with my first agency.
Wow.
So it was your mom that did it after all that.
Yeah.
So you said something earlier that was really fascinating to me. Like you said that the world of work in Hollywood was kind of separate from the life you were living throughout, I guess, like into your teens still. Like, I mean, my experience was kind of different. It's like it was all very much one once I moved at 12 years old into Hollywood, and not until I was, really in my mid-20s, like, and Gossip Girl was sort of peaking. That's when I started taking steps towards what now I actually am only realizing it as you said it, is kind of feeling like two separate lives. Like I very much, work is like this. I think Nava and Sophie can probably attest to this. It's like this other part of me, which is like working and famous in the field and all that kind of stuff. But then it's like I have this life. I mean, I don't know how much you can see behind me, but I'm like in the woods and I'm upstate New York, and
it's a lumberjack.
And sometimes it does feel almost bizarrely separate. So I actually think, it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. And you're saying now you're kind of, is it because of school primarily that now you're going to enter your 20s shortly? You are no longer you have the whole thing where you have to like work only a certain number of hours. And
yeah, I never really realized how much school kind of contributed to a social life, because again, the only reason why I know my friends is through school. So once I started doing homeschool, that kind of sort of lessened, and now that I'm not doing school at all and I've just been working, I think that I've kind of lost that part, or it's not as concentrated in my life, which is kind of that's that weird, I have to actually reach out to people and make effort to have some sort of human connection, because I've never really been good at that sort of thing. So it's been kind of a learning curve.
What did your siblings think of it?
Honestly, I don't think that they thought much about it then or now. I kind of feel really guilty, because a large majority of their childhood was their mom being gone half the time because she was, spending time. And, she would miss the soccer games and she would miss the whatever. So I think that when I work, I really try to impress them, if anything. Like, it's just kind of making them proud, or kind of making them feel like it was all worth it. But it's things as simple as, working with a rapper that they really like. It has to be something like that impresses them. Other than that,
did you work with a rapper they really liked? Oh, was it Kid Cudi?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's
and
awesome.
Then that's when they ask me questions. Oh, what was that one? whoa. I might get a repost on their Instagram story.
So are you saying when you worked with me, they just nothing? It wasn't even like a blip in the radar.
That's what Penn's trying to get at this whole time. Sure? Like, what about me?
just give me their number. Just give me their number. I'll just check in.
Actually, what I will say about you is, because there were so many memes, my older sister Mia would send me memes of you.
I'm definitely a couple of memes and a half. Yeah.
Jenna, just while we're on this sort of topic of middle school, I'm just wondering for you, either on set or at school, if you're comfortable, could you tell us about like your first crush, maybe your first heartbreak, any kind of embarrassing stories from that time? Although you seem very composed, but
I had my first crush, or I believed I had my first crush when I was maybe 5. Wow. But I've never been again, I can be so awkward and it can be so hard for me to make new friends or reach out to people that even if I did have a crush, I would never speak to them. Matter of fact, I would avoid them because I had a crush on them. And if I looked at them, then they would immediately know that I was secretly in love with them and wrote about them when I went home in my diary.
Classic.
I was about things, right ever. So I didn't really, when I was in middle school, I didn't date anyone or I didn't do anything. But I do remember one time I was speaking with a boy that I knew he liked me. He kind of liked everyone. He was one of those guys.
I know those guys. I can totally picture that guy.
Looking back, I want to shake my head. But I was in 7th grade. I was sitting across from this guy and we were just making jokes. And I started feeling really sick. So I put my head down kind of as I was reading. So I was reading kind of sideways. And he was asking me, man, how are you reading like that? There's no way that you're actually picking up the words on the page. And I said, no, I'm a huge reader. I do this all the time. And he kept asking me questions, but I was getting more and more nauseous. I felt like I needed to close my eyes. But he said something that kind of made me laugh, and I put my head up, and as soon as I came up, I felt my mouth start to water.
Oh, no.
And he asked me a question, and I put my finger up, and my mouth started to fill with a certain kind of thick fluid, and I told him, I gave him the hand, I walked over to the trash can, and I projectile vomited the banana that I had for breakfast this morning and more.
So wait, is this all because of who you were talking to? Can we just get a confirmation there?
I would like to make that connection.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was that thing where everyone in the class goes, ooh.
Oh, I feel that. It's visceral for me now, Jenna.
Yeah, my teacher had me walk all the way to the principal's office where the nurse's office was, holding that trash can in my hand. Had a friend walk me, and I told her, I'm fine. I don't need to go home. And my mom was always kind of one of those parents who, if I got sick, it was still not a reason to miss school. It was like, okay, we'll just get it out in the morning, throw up in the morning, and then, oh, okay, you're good to go. So I was so embarrassed not only to have to confront my mom when she picked me up and she was thinking, oh man, why are you missing school? Or also to that boy that I was talking to followed me to the trash can and watched me from behind and like put a hand on my back and was super attentive during this gross time.
That's very mature for like a 12-year-old boy.
Well, what did he want?
Yeah, he just wanted to be close.
Yeah,
to
I'm like,
girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he held my hair back. I must be in love with him.
Yeah.
I feel like Nava can relate to this. Nava, don't you have like a nausea thing? Or you had? Or is it have? Is it you didn't and now you?
What I can most relate to is avoiding someone that I like. And like often, I mean, I've improved a little bit, but I think what Penn is talking about is like one time I had rehearsed with like a friend, written down, like there was like a speech that I was going to give this guy. And then like set up the whole thing, went to dinner. And then every time I would try to like open my mouth, I felt like I was going to throw up. And I just like ended up not ever doing it. And then leaving him like a voice memo, which was much, much worse, like much more embarrassing. But I couldn't do it in person. I would get so nauseous. That was when I was 30. So like not a child.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenna, I feel like we need to get into this submitted story now. I am obsessed with this story. I have so much to say about it, partially because it feels like it's my story. Like, honestly, I could have written it myself. I don't know. I'm wondering if you have any experiences like that. Like, what did this story bring up for you?
I started to laugh internally because same exact experience almost. I asked my mom if I could shave my legs when I was in 5th grade too, because I was very hairy. I have dark hair. I'm Latina. I remember I was insecure about my leg hair, but my arm hair more. I actually there was a girl who I was friends with, quotation marks, in 6th grade who told me that I had gorilla arms, is what she would call them, because I just had really long arm hair. So when I was in 6th grade, my mom finally allowed me to shave my legs, and she showed me on one leg how to do it. And I was like, oh, okay, I got it. And I did it. And then when I came out of the bathroom, she realized that I had shaved my arms as well. And she said, whoa, I didn't say you could do all that. I said legs, but there's no reason. You didn't need to shave your arms. So I knew that when I walked out, I I was doing something that she told me not to, but it was just such a deep insecurity of mine, and nobody ever addressed it again. But it's still to this day, every single day, shave my arms. It's like without question, I can't, if there's even stubble, if there's even anything, I get really insecure about it again. And I just immediately, just because it became such habit. And
yeah. I totally relate too. So I'm half Persian, and Persians are also very hairy. And so when I was in 7th grade, we wore a school uniform. I went to an Episcopalian school. But one day I bent over and I think my shirt was untucked or something. And there was a little, I guess I had back hair, and I was 12. And this boy was like, "You're a hairy monkey." And I was so embarrassed. And after that, I shaved everything. I shaved my arms, my back, my face. If I'll look at my arms and there's a little bit of stubble, I'll get oh my God, no. And I'll hop in the shower and shave them. Just from this one kid saying you're a hairy monkey when I was 12.
Yeah. I feel for me, what both of you are saying really resonates. I, for a long time, have name a hair removal process. I've used it. Anything under the sun, actually except laser, which is probably the one that I should do. But I wonder how, for both of you guys, I guess, as women who've struggled with hair and maybe just body image in general, how has your idea of beauty, your conception of beauty evolved over time? Has it evolved, or it sounds like those feelings are still pretty prevalent, but...
And Jenna, just to add to that, because you're an actress and there's, I think, so much pressure on women in Hollywood to be very thin and to look perfect and to look good on camera. And even though there's a public conversation that's kind of changing and there's more, it seems like more room for less strict, I guess, norms publicly, I wonder, is that the case on set? Or how also does being on set and being on camera shape your attention, I guess, to your own beauty and the pressures that you feel? And is that shifting as the conversation shifts?
Yeah, there's been a major conversation shift, but also the internet is brutal. It's really wonderful to have those conversations in safe environments where you feel everybody can say what they need to say with no judgment, but it's no one's safe on there. And I don't really take certain stereotypes or pay attention to current beauty trends or whatever's happening right now because it's entirely not relevant. But I'm somebody who's incredibly hard on myself, and doing the job that I do, and also just being somebody who overanalyzes something, I will never hold myself to the same standard. I actually just started therapy recently, which is the most uncomfortable, ugly feeling I've ever had. And it's just something that I was told that I needed to do. I've been recently having more conversations like that where, I go and describe people in a certain way, and then my therapist goes to try to describe me in the same way, and it turns you off and makes you feel weird. So I think it's just a weird disconnect with myself personally when it comes to beauty standards that I need to make that, I need to flip that switch or work on that. That's just an internal issue. But the internet is, people hide behind a screen and can say whatever they want to say with no consequences. And in terms of security and in myself or my appearance or even just who I am as a person, doing this job, it's so difficult that oftentimes I consider not doing it at all. And it's something that I still consider to this day, because if I want to make art or I want to be creative in some way, that's also something I can do on a much smaller scale. I can make films in my backyard if I really need to. I don't have to, it's never been about the photos and people saying hi to you on the street. It's just been because it's something that's fun for me, and I like being able to make people feel something. Or if I could tell a story that resonates with someone or give somebody comfort, or just can kind of take their mind off of things for a while, I'm more than happy to do that, and I jump at the opportunity. But if it gets as hard as it does sometimes, it's kind of not worth it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think look, I'm 35. Am I twice your age? I'm not going to do math right now. This is why I act. Being successful and visible is a really strange place to be as an actor, probably for anybody doing anything where they get that. But I think as an actor, you're constantly on this razor's edge between being very self-conscious and then needing to lose all of that and be very vulnerable for the sake of your craft. And I do think it's very hard to achieve a so-called balance, And by the way, I don't know that when you put celebrity into the mix of things, that there's really a balance. I don't know that there's like an equilibrium that you can sustain for a really long time. I think anybody's going to always grapple with it, you know?
I'm wondering, Jenna, if there is something that you do to try to stay grounded. Like, do you have a practice around that? How do you stay grounded?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't have some sort of ritual, and and I can acknowledge that I probably need that. But I honestly think just because I'm so close to my family and people that I've known forever, I don't really feel, I don't know, I don't like paying attention to whatever's going on online. And I used to be obsessed with it, and I don't obsess with it over anymore. I delete apps and do the whole thing. And I think that helps a lot because there's kind of a disconnect. So, I know that I have however many followers on Instagram, but I don't know. My job is, I'm a very privileged person. I get to go to work and be excited about what I do. And I think I just try to appreciate that for what it is, whether it, sometimes it's maybe not the greatest experience, and sometimes it's the most thrilling experience I've ever had. I think honestly, right now I'm at a place where I'm just taking it day by day, and whatever happens. And if I feel like, maybe I just need to ignore people for a few hours and listen to music and clean or sit with myself, or maybe write, because I used to really, really love writing, and I honestly haven't written in such a long time, then I'll do that.
So Jenna, I actually grew up in Puerto Rico, and I was actually going to ask you if you've spent any time in Puerto Rico, and sort of what is your relationship to that community, and do you feel like supported? How do you feel like you're moving towards your goals of kind of representing?
No, I've never been to Puerto Rico, and I would love to go just because culture and becoming closer with my heritage. But there's 6 kids in my family. That's a lot of plane tickets.
Yeah.
That's a lot to manage. It's pretty expensive. My parents work full time. I think a big part of it for me too is I don't speak Spanish. It's something that I'm very familiar with. I just never learned how to properly speak or proper grammar. So that creates some sort of disconnect. And even now, I think, Latin representation in media is so weak and really could use a big push. But sometimes you almost don't feel qualified enough to even do that, because even though that's what your blood says, or that's what, your family tree says, because I don't speak Spanish or haven't been to Puerto Rico or haven't done, things like that, it makes you feel almost diluted, which kind of is hard. And I think as I've gotten older, I've developed more of an appreciation for that background and more interest in learning about it. But you get almost nervous to claim it, which is a really weird feeling.
All this stuff on culture it's really interesting. I have kind of the reverse of you, Jenna. So I'm also mixed, but I'm not Puerto Rican. But I grew up in Puerto Rico. My family moved there when I was 3. I did like all my education there. My mom passed away and she's like buried there. Until last year, we had a family home there. So I feel like very strongly I identify culturally as Puerto Rican, but I never say I'm Puerto Rican because I feel like I'm not allowed to. But then it's also like it's the most dominant culture that's like influenced me. All my closest friends are Puerto Rican. I feel like I'm always rooting for Puerto Rico if they're ever in an international event. But it is like confusing to also feel like I'm not allowed to say it because it's not in my blood. I'm not technically Puerto Rican. So yeah, I think this stuff is just, it's complicated and it's delicate.
You know what that makes me think is that, you said, Jenna, the feeling that you used the word diluted, which is like, it's a beautiful word to use. It's kind of makes me feel a little bit of almost like, I don't know, like heartbreak, like, because the feeling of inadequacy that people have at that age is, what has inspired us thinking about this podcast and this concept. And you were like were you 12 when you were on Jane the Virgin? 13?
Yes. Yeah.
So can you just like paint a little bit of a picture of who you were at that age?
I have always been an immense overthinker. It's to a fault. I'm incredibly indecisive and nervous. And I remember that when I started working on that show, I thought I was going to get fired every time I went there because
Really?
when I auditioned, I had only 3 lines maybe, and I worked those lines multiple times on the 2.5-3 hour drive up to LA, okay, this is so easy. You just got to go in there, say these 3 lines. And I messed up one of the lines. I switched the words around and I thought, oh my goodness, I just had my mom do this drive and I'm not going to book this job. And then I booked the job and I realized, oh, I really look like Gina Rodriguez, though. I associated myself getting the job with the fact that I look like Gina.
Interesting.
So every time I went there, I felt I had something to prove. Also, my parents told me that they told me 2 things that when I started to become an actor. If you do this job, you're going to be given a platform that a lot of people may not have or ever get the opportunity to have. So you have to use it for good. You can't go around there and do nothing. You have to enforce some sort of
I love your
positive
parents.
change.
I just need to say that.
Yeah, I love them too. They said that, and they also said good grades. If you don't have good grades, then we're pulling you out. You got to focus on school. So I also, during that time, I think I just tend to stress myself out a lot because if I wasn't doing the absolute best on my essays, or if I wasn't going to the Jane the Virgin set and shaking everybody's hand and greeting everyone with a smile and making sure that they're all right and that I was attentive and listening and not distracted. I don't know. I kind of felt as if I was always on, which I think is a common term that entertainers use.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, it is that performative act, which kind of makes you feel weird too, because then you go home at the end of the day and you turn it off and it's, oh man, I almost don't know what to do with myself because I don't have to answer to somebody or, I don't know, put all this extra work in. And it was drive up to LA, film, drive back home to the desert, do all my schoolwork in the car, go to, it was just very...
A lot of headaches,
but it was a schedule that I was comfortable with, but I was always on edge. And I think I still am in a lot of ways. I think it's just the way I operate. And if I do have a moment to kind of relax or calm myself a bit, I don't like to because I feel as though I'm being unproductive and I'm not getting anything done. And then what does that mean for my future and my life? And what am I going to become?
So it sounds like the pandemic was great for your mental health overall, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it never felt better.
Jenna, you're so like self-determined and driven. And you've mentioned a few times that you're not like easily satisfied. So I'm wondering for yourself, you've like already accomplished, it seems like the goals that you described early on in this conversation, you've accomplished a lot of them. So I'm wondering if you've set like a new sort of goalpost for yourself. Like what are things that you haven't yet accomplished that you're now like that your eye is on, that you're kind of driving yourself towards?
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm still kind of caught up on the same thing. I wish that I was somebody who could live in the moment, honestly, because it's okay. So I did this, but I didn't do it the best that I possibly could have, or this could have been better, or maybe maybe my heart wasn't fully in it. And whether or not other people recognize that, I recognize that. New goals, I think a lot of it, is personal stuff, not so much work oriented, because I really exhaust myself sometimes. So I think that it's more, all right, well, you can't be tired forever. Or maybe you're tired of being tired. So then it's just kind of that, okay, if you're so focused on being artistic or wanting to be creative and feeling like you're not good enough at being creative, then you should pick up hobbies. Maybe you should play more instruments. Maybe you should learn how to oil paint. Maybe you should learn how to. So I think a lot of, at least my goals, especially for this year, I guess you could say, is pick up a lot of new hobbies.
Me
rather
too.
than, because I think, the more I focus on work and the more I just know I'm going to keep spiraling and keep, I don't know. That doesn't always feel good.
No, and you need a whole life. So I think that sounds very healthy what you're describing. Yeah.
It's a nice image.
Since we're sort of wrapping, we have like a standard closing question, which is just if you could talk to yourself at 12, what would you tell 12-year-old Jenna?
Oh. I would tell her to relax. Not everything is so urgent, or there's no, I don't know, I was really in a hurry to grow up because I think I wanted to prove to my parents that I could manage it. They didn't have to worry about me. they're making the right decision by supporting me. Yeah, I don't think I ever emphasized the importance of childhood or having fun, or I don't know. I kind of withheld myself from a lot of experiences because I didn't want to be perceived as immature, or I tried to really sit and observe situations objectively. And if I felt like, maybe 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and think that was a bad idea, I would avoid something. And I wish I didn't. I wish that it wasn't so serious all the time. Growing up or being a teenager, I should have ventured out more, and I shouldn't have. Yeah, I mean, work is work. You're also a kid, and it's just not that serious. And I tend to make things that serious, and I don't think I needed to. And I guess that's what I'd tell her. Just calm down. Go outside.
Go outside.
That's it's consistent. It's consistent. People seem to say, like, what I think we can all realize is that at 12, the stakes seem so high. The stakes seem so high. And in reality, they don't need to feel that way. But for some reason, they do.
We're so grateful. We know it's super late there, and you have had a day full of press. It's been so nice to get to know you.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you for joining us.
Likewise. Thank you guys so much for this conversation. It's so nice.
Jenna was such a delight. I love her.
It's funny, a phrase that you two use a lot about celebrities when you meet them on this show or in real life, or, constantly when you're referencing me, which she's so down to earth. And there was a humility and as you were saying, like a vulnerability that I'm just really appreciating right now.
And what I'm most appreciative of is the fact that we even got this interview, because there was a little bit of a snafu, which made me very anxious. Penn, maybe you can tell us what happened today.
Yeah. So I'm recording like 50 minutes away from where I live upstate. I actually don't know anybody save for like a friend who's maybe about 15 minutes away. So right before the interview, I realized with our engineer and Sophie's lovely husband, David, I don't have my laptop. I thought, every day I'm showing up here with my iPad to record. That's enough.
Like a grandpa.
Grandpa with an iPad. Grandpa with high output and efficiency with this iPad. You should see me toggling between ebooks. But yes, I'll take it. That's fair. In a lot of ways, I'm like an old man. And I'm texting this friend who lives 15 minutes away, like, can you bring the laptop over? And like, he got the text late, so maybe he could, but it was...
And it's like 15 minutes to call time.
At this point, even less. At this point, it was like, we're talking 8 minutes. So David is actually running around outside, literally running. I saw him running it's like 8-degree weather and he's wearing a mask. And I'm just thinking like, this podcast, like what? And
like about to quit.
I quit.
About to just let it all go up in flames.
And so David just very sweetly is like, do you mind just like, I went to the right, can you go to the left of this building we're in and just
ask neighbors?
Yeah, like go outside, just literally walk outside. So I literally go outside, I walk across like a couple of lawns and go up to a door and knock. And this woman answers, her dog is barking at me. And I pull down my mask just to kind of like smile and be like, hi, I'm not here to abduct you. I'm
a stalker.
Unless you know me as one on television, in which case even better, you might be more inclined to give me anything. She neither thought I was creepy nor did she know who I was. And so I got this old Mac. She gave me her password, guys. She gave me her password.
Wow. Don't tell us.
And she doesn't even know you're a celebrity.
No,
That's impressive.
No. At that point, I did explain who I was because I thought it would at least
give you some capital.
It's like accountability. Like if I'm asking, a stranger shows up at your door asking for a laptop.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give you my ID. Also, I'm a famous actor. Have you ever seen Netflix?
And then at that point, did she know?
She didn't. No. She's one of the few.
Salt in the wound.
Yeah.
When Nava and I were here waiting, like anxiously as well, to find out what's going on, and we just heard Penn doesn't have a laptop. He's asking some neighbors. We were like, who would we give our laptop to? Like, who would have to knock on our door?
If Chase Crawford showed up at my door
and give him my body
and asked me for a laptop, I would give it to him. I'm not.
For me, it would be Jesse Williams. I thought about this the whole interview.
I'd give him anything.
Don't tell David.
You can catch Jenna in the upcoming Netflix series Wednesday, premiering this fall, and you can follow her on socials at Jenna Ortega.
Podcrushed is hosted by Penn Badgley, Nava Kavelin, and Sophie Ansari.
Our executive producer is Nora Ritchie from Stitcher.
Our lead producer and editor is David Ansari.
Our secondary editor is Sharaf and Twistle.
Special thanks to Peter Clowney, VP of Content at Stitcher, Eric Eddings, Director of Lifestyle Programming at Stitcher, Jared O'Connell and Brendan Brines for the tech support, and Shruti Marate, who transcribes our tape.
Podcrushed was created by Nava Kavelin and is executive produced by Penn Badgley and Nava Kavelin and produced by Sophie Ansari. This podcast is a Ninth Node production. Be sure to subscribe to Podcrushed. You can find us on Stitcher, the SiriusXM app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. If you'd like to submit a middle school story, go to podcrushed.com and give us every detail.
And while you're online, be sure to follow us on socials, or we're telling everyone that your mom still walks you to the bus stop. You don't want that. It's at Podcrushed, spelled how it sounds, and our personals are at Penn Badgley, at Nava, that's Nava with 3 N's, and at Scribble by Sophie. And we're out. See you next week. This is Podcrushed.
This is Podcrushed. This is Podcrushed. This is Podcrushed.
This is Podcrushed.
Stitcher.